The section's on 7.5, System of Inequalities. There's two parts of this video, so we're going to go ahead and do the first part, which is then the graphing and also the shading part of it. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So you need to change the equation to a y. So if you have a variable of x or also a constant on the same side of the y, make sure you bring it to the other side of the inequality. And also you want to simplify because you're going to have some fractions involved, so it's easier to graph it if there is no, if you can simplify that. So determine if the inequality sign needs to switch. Remember, you're only switching the inequality signs if you're dividing by a negative. If you're subtracting by a negative, you will not switch the inequality sign. You also have to determine if the inequality sign is dotted or a solid line right here. Once we're ready to graph it, we'll determine that. And then the last part is the shading. So we have to decide where is the solution by shading that. So let's go ahead and do an example 1. So example 1 is 2x plus 4y is less than 8. So I have to keep my 4y over here on this side of the left side of the inequality. So we want to bring the 2x over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides of the inequality sign right there. And we have is 4y is less than negative 2x plus 8. So the plus 8 is because this is a positive 8, and we brought it over or scooted over to the right-hand side right there, so that's a plus 8. If this was a negative, then this would have been a minus instead, okay? Then we want to divide both sides by 4. Now, when you divide by both sides of 4, please do not do all over 4, because some of you guys do that. And when you do all over 4, and sometimes you are making mistakes and things like that. So I want to make sure you divide by 4 on both of the variables and also the constant as well. So in this case, it's negative 2 divided by 4x and then plus 8 over 4. Now both of these can be simplified, so let's go ahead and simplify that. And the final answer then becomes y is less than negative 1 over 2, x plus 2, and now we're ready to graph this out. So when we graph this out, we're going to have to determine what parts to graph out. This plus 2 right here on the end right here, this is called the y-intercept, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and initialize it as y-int for intercept. Then we have is the front part, which is the slope. Now the slope tells me my run and rise. So if you remember, the top is always the rise, right? And then the bottom is always the run down here. So we're going to run 2 positive, so we're going to go positive 2 on the directions. And then we're going to rise down negative 1, and so that means we're going to go down. And if this was a positive, you would rise up instead, okay? So let's go ahead and graph this. So the y-intercept says it's plus 2. So of the y-intercept right here, let me label this y and x as well. So the y-intercept of 2 right here, we're going to put a dot at 2, okay? Because this is the y-intercept. Then I'm running 2, so from the y-intercept, I'm running 2. Now, when I'm running 2, I'm running positive 2, so positive is this direction on the x-axis. So I'm running 2, 1, 2. I'm not done yet, because I also have to do the rise, which is negative 1. So rise is negative 1 means that I'm dropping down 1, and I'm putting a dot right there. Okay, one more time. So from this dot now, I'm going 2 to the right, so that's 1, 2, and rising down 1, so that's the third dot right there, okay? Now, from here, I look at this inequality sign, it says y is less than. The less than will tell me if it's a solid or if it's a dotted line. And if it's less than or greater than without the little equal sign, it's going to be a dotted line. So on the 3 dots that I have, I'm going to go ahead and do a dotted line right there. Okay, so then we put a little arrows because those dotted lines will go on forever on both ends. So now we have to do the shading part. Now, the shading part says when y is less than. So I look at the y-intercept right here and I ask myself, is y getting less than on the bottom or on the top right here? Well, y is less than on the bottom right here, right? So everything down here has to be the shaded part right here. So that is where the solution is, okay? So again, I'm going to go over this again. We're going to graph it at the 2 right there, the y-intercept of 2. So I went up 2 right there. My run and rise on the slope is I'm running 2 because the bottom is always the run, the top is always the rise. So I'm running 2 positive, so I'm going towards the positive 2 spaces. And we're going down 1 because of the rise is down 1. And I do one more time, 2 on the left or on the right, and then down 1. And then from there, I'm drawing dotted lines right here because of the inequality sign right here. The inequality sign is less than. If it's less than or equal to, then it's dotted. If it has a little equal to sign, then that's going to be the solid. Okay? So because there is no equal to, we're going to go ahead and do a dotted line right there. And then the shading part says when y is less than. So looking at the y-intercept right here, you ask yourself, where is y less than? Y is getting less than down here, so everything down here becomes the solution. Okay? So let's go on to example 2 now. So example 2 then tells me I have is 3x minus y is less than 4. So same thing, we're going to go ahead and switch that equation around before we start doing the graphing part of it. So if I have 3x minus y is greater than or equal to 4, I have to keep the y by itself and bring the x over on the other side first. So we're going to subtract by 3x on both sides. If you subtract by 3x, I have is then negative y is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 4. We cannot have a negative on that y right there. So the coefficient in front of that y is negative 1. So we want to divide both sides by negative 1. So again, I'm going to put it underneath here because I know some of you guys need to see that. So we're going to go ahead and put it underneath here. So you can see this is negative 3 divided by negative 1, and then positive 4 divided by negative 1. We're also going to simplify this right here. And because you can physically see that I divided by a negative, the inequality sign also needs to switch. So when we switch it, we're going to flip it the other way. So negative divided by negative is positive, and positive divided by negative is going to give us negative right here. Okay, so now we're ready to graph. So again, when we graph this out, the negative 4 right here, this tells me this is the y-intercept. So that's the y-intercept. The 3 right here is the slope. Now notice the 3 does not have a fraction this time, but we always put it over 1 if we do not have a fraction. So the bottom will still be the run, and the top will still be the rise right here. So from here, negative 4, we have was 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is where I'm starting at the y-intercept of negative 4. We're running positive 1, so I'm going positive 1. Let me just do a couple more lines right here. So positive 1 right here, and we're rising 3. Because it's positive, we're going up. So from this spot, my run is then 1, 2, 3 right there. And let me just do one more dot just to be safe. So we're running 1 right here in positive, and then we're rising up 3. So we have is 1, 2, 3. There's your third dot right there. Now looking at the inequality sign, it says it's less than or equal to, so there's that little equal to sign right there. So that tells me I have a solid line, so we're going to go ahead and put a solid line right there. Solid line with a little arrow right there. And now we're ready to shade. So the shading part again says when y is less than or equal to. So looking at the y-intercept right here, y is less than either down here or y is less than up here. Y is less than is down here, so all of this side now becomes the solution or the shaded part right there. Okay? So that's the second part of the example. Now let's try another example. Example 3. So example 3, I have a little bit different shape right there. I kind of want to introduce that part too, because if we come to that part, we need to graph that out. So I have then as y is less than or equal to, and then has a negative x squared plus 3. So the negative x squared, that's a different shape. It's not a linear equation. It's going to be a quadratic equation, which then gives me a parabola. Okay? So we also learned early on this year to graph this. Since there is no left and right shift on this, I start at 3 right there. So we have is then positive 3, so I'm going to go ahead and start 1, 2, 3. This is my positive 3. The parabola is negative, so it's facing downwards. And before I do that, the inequality sign is less than or equal to, so it's a solid line. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch it. It's going to go towards this way down here. Now I have to decide which part of it is going to be shaded. Now here's the tricky part of the parabola shape. If it is the part down here, then it's only inside of this parabola right here that gets shaded. If it's on the top part right here, then it's on the outside of the parabola. Okay? Whereas the line, it was either on the top or on the bottom. It was pretty easy to distinguish that. But when we have a parabola shape or something kind of different shape, it's either going to be in the inside or the outside of the shape. So in this case, since y is less than or equal to, so the same thing, I go to the y-intercept and I ask myself, y is less than is all the bottom down here. So all of the inside part of the parabola is where the solution is. Okay? If it was y the parabola right there. All right? And then last example, I want to also have as a vertical line one, because I know we might enter in something like that. So when we have a vertical shape right there, x is less than negative 3. So in this case, the x line, vertical line, is going this direction as the x line, right? This is x equals 0, x equals 1, x equals 2, etc. So since I have x equals, or x is less than negative 3 would be on this side right here, on the negative side. And if I look at the inequality sign, it's less than, there is no little equal to, so I'm going to have to make a dotted line right here. So we go dotted line right there at negative 3. And then I have to determine, in this case, where x is less than negative 3. So in this case, unlike the linear line, which was then usually the top or the bottom, you're either going to shade everything on the left side or everything on the right-hand side of the line right here. So since x is less than has to be on the negative side, it's going that direction, right? Because greater than would have to go in this direction because it's going to get more positive on this side. So since it's on this side, the solution would all be on the left-hand side of that inequality line right there. Okay? So those are the shapes that we were going to go into as the part of the classwork. So I want to make sure you know, in some of the equations on the linear, it's usually top and the bottom that we shade. If it has x's, it's going to either be the left side or the right side. If it has parabolas, it's either in the inside of the parabola or on the outside of the parabola. Okay? So that's going to be the classwork now.